This morning, we hear from the students, first-time voters on a presidential election like none other. Where do they stand on the issues, on the candidates?
This is the Emmy Award-winning 11 News Close-Up with your host, Marvin Scott.
Good morning, everyone. A week from Tuesday, it'll all be over after a grueling campaign season that has elevated our stress levels. Absolutely. We are down to the wire now with two candidates with decades of scrutiny and scandals, and according to the polls, unprecedented unlikability. While some polls suggesting Hillary Clinton will handily win this race, other polls suggest not to count out Donald Trump, not just yet. Over the past several months, we have heard from Republicans and Democrats on this program, and nonpartisans as well. This morning, we want to hear what young voters think they'll be voting for the first time. Later in the program, we'll hear from our resident political analyst, Jeannie Zaino and Morgan Peckma. First, I'm pleased to be joined by students from Jeannie Zaino's political science class at Iona College. Here they are: Matt Ricker, Anna Carney, Tiffany Chavera, Giovanni Luigi Rosano, Erin Kutch, Angelica Bogdani, Kira Kelty Kala Kosek, and Patrick Lynch. Thank you all so much for coming in. And all, they range in age from 18 to 22, voting for the first time, except for Giovanni. He's a resident foreign exchange student. We'll hear what his view is of this whole election. But first, let me ask all, are you all excited to be voting the first time?
Yes.
All right. Have you all decided who you're voting for?
No.
No. So we have some undecided. How many here are voting for Secretary Clinton? All right, we have one for Clinton. How about Donald Trump? We have one for Donald Trump here. And the rest of you are all undecided. It'll be very interesting to hear what is going to get you to decide between now and a week from Tuesday. Okay, let me ask Tiffany, why are you behind Secretary Clinton?
Well, being from Hispanic descent, I think that says enough in itself. And I come from a family where there are some immigrants doing the right things. And I think it's my duty to protect them and see that tomorrow I won't wake up and they won't be here anymore.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's hear, though, from Kira. You're undecided.
I am. And I think the reason why I'm undecided is I share a lot of frustration, perhaps with all of you, is I believe that this election has turned into a circus. And when I watch the debates, I get very frustrated because it seems that there's no more substance there. It's all about entertaining the crowds. We see this on social media, on Twitter, on Snapchat, and while I appreciate the pull to involve millennials, I think that the substance of this debate and truly the whole point of this election and all the issues that every candidate supposedly supports has been lost. And this really has confused me, and I'm very concerned about who I will vote for.
Let's turn over here to Tiffany or Erin. What is going to factor into your decision between now and Election Day?
I think between now and Election Day, I'm really just going to make a pro and con list and really evaluate my values and what I see in both candidates. I think, like Kira said, those values have been lost. So it's kind of trying to find, through policy and just reading what they've said, trying to find a meaning in what I believe in. So it's going to be hard, but I have my absentee ballot waiting, so I'm ready to fill it out. I just need to figure out who I'm voting for.
You're going to decide at the last minute.
Last minute, postmarked it.
Really, I mean, Erin hit on most of it. I mean, just being able to go back through some of the past debates, looking at some of the past videos, I think, like Kira said and mentioned, social media is such a major impact for especially millennials, but really all of us. So I think it's going back on our news feeds and back on some of these news programs and really being able to break down some of the major points. So that's, for me, one of the biggest things.
Kayla?
Well, I study terrorism and security threat analysis, and so overall, I would say national security is really what drives me in this election overall, and I'm a pro-life advocate, so naturally I just lean conservative, and so I would say I would lean towards Trump. However, you never know what could happen with the next week and a half, and I am nervous to vote for any party, but I am comfortable saying I could not, in my heart, vote for Hillary Clinton, so that would be why I would determine closer to the election.
Let's hear what Angelica has to say.
Honestly, you might not like the execution of Trump's message, but I believe that he's the only one that's right about the issues. for me, I agree with him on policy. I agree with him about the Supreme Court. But the major reason why I'm voting for him is because the cultural impact that he will have. Honestly, I just feel like we're living in an oversensitive generation, especially kids my age. You know, we're policing language. We're telling kids like what they can or cannot wear. And it's kind of antithetical to the founding principles that this country was founded on. And if you couldn't have a better representation of anti-political correctness, so that's basically why I'm voting for Donald Trump.
You're all focused on this. You're paying attention to this campaign. How about you, Matt?
Well, for me, I'm an undecided voter, but you know, I'm really split. But like Kayla said, I'm also a pro-life advocate, and for me, for Hillary Clinton, it's just more of a trust issue, and you know what she has done in her past. And though Trump may not always come off as a perfect candidate, I do like that he has experience in the economy and, creating lots of jobs. And, I think we need someone else outside the establishment.
And how do you feel about it, Anna?
Honestly, I'm a little disappointed. It's my first time that I can finally vote, and we're given these two candidates. And I just feel like people my age are not content with who is running. And like for me personally, I'm focusing more on Congress, especially since there's a lot of seats up for
let me turn here to Giovanni. Giovanni cannot vote, but you've been observing it. You're a foreign exchange student from Italy, and you've been watching this from afar. Well, what's your view of this election?
I mean, if I have the right to vote, probably I will go for Trump, because I feel that he's the only one between the two candidates that really want to secure the border. Also, if I think that probably the way that he wants to do that, I don't know if it's achievable, because I don't know if it's possible to, build a wall and let Mexico pay for it. But I think that Trump, when he talks, he speaks like, also if people say he's not very political correct, he say things how they are. And that I like his honesty, and that's why probably I will go for him if I have the right vote.
Anna pointed out, not content with either of the candidates. So let me ask this question of all of you. If you had a choice of someone else, who would those candidates be, Republican and Democrat?
Personally, I was an enthusiastic Trump supporter kind of around when Paris happened. I was kind of a Cruz. I guess Ted Cruz would be the only person that I would vote for, but I'm not just voting the lesser of two evils. I really do want to vote for Donald Trump.
Well, since the mic is so close to her, let's find out what Kira thinks.
Well, back when there were several Republican nominees, a very exorbitant amount, I was attracted not to any individual candidate, but I did really like what John Kasich stood for. I appreciated a lot of what was being said by, I did like Trump in the beginning, but things just got a little bit too radical. There were a few others as well. Even Gary Johnson, his name has been going up around, and I did like some of his policies too, but you kind of wonder if voting third party is a viable option.
Anna?
John Kasich visited our school last semester, and when he came, I liked a lot of the points that he made, and he seems like a good candidate. Unfortunately, he didn't have the best run, but he would get my vote if he was running.
And Tiffany?
Realistically speaking, I do think who you decide to vote for comes from your background, where you grew up, and where you want to be, and the loved ones around you. So I would definitely think that Bernie Sanders had a big impact and would have helped my family a lot more than the current candidates.
And let's find out what Anna thinks.
About Bernie Sanders? I do like Bernie. I wasn't, when he was still running, I didn't really keep up with what he was thinking and his policies. I know that he was very pro, about school, free education. I like that, but at the same time, with free education comes higher taxes, and I don't think students necessarily understand that. In his thinking, I believe it was State College that was free. So for us, since we do go to a private school, I don't think that would pertain to us at all.
Let's pass it over to Kayla.
In regards to Bernie Sanders, I personally feel that he would not have been a true candidate. We could see that he did not rightfully he didn't have a fair election, and I do agree with anybody who did stand by him that he did not have a fair election, and I personally feel like it should be retried. But as far as him running for president, all the things he stood on were not accurate and did not hold any weight. And I would say that with the fact that he did have a place in the Senate, and anything he said about schooling and having free education, he could have done those same efforts, and actively represented those students in the Senate. And if he didn't do it there, who's to say he would have done it in the presidency? Let
me ask all of you. Donald Trump is making a lot of noise. He's saying this election is rigged. How many of you believe that? Let me ask you why. Giovanni, you're watching from afar. Why do you think that?
No, I don't think it's rigged. I think that the media are leading too much for Clinton, especially during the second debate. I feel like, especially the moderator from CNN, they were on top on Donald Trump too much. And overall, I think the best debate that I watched was the third one, because I think the moderator, I don't remember his name, but I think it was he was the best one, the one from Fox. I think he was the how I can say the.
Got your point. Let's hear from Erin, because we only have a few moments left.
I do believe that there is bias in media coverage, but I don't believe to the extent of Donald Trump's it's rigged. We still have democracy in this country, and there's still the voters are going to speak on November 8th. But I do believe that there are certain things. Both candidates have a lot of dirty laundry, and there is a choice in what's covered. But because there's so much, media outlets have the right, because we do live in a democracy, to pick what's covered. So I think that there has been bias by news networks, but it hasn't. I think voters who want to be informed on certain issues are, and it will come out November 8th with the results.
And how do the rest of you feel? Let's see a show of hand. Do you think there's been a media bias here? It seems to be them. Well, no, we got a few who don't think there's a media bias. Anyway, you've all been paying attention to your excellent professor, Jeannie Zaino. Thank you all for joining us from Iona College. Appreciate hearing the views of first-time young voters. Thanks for coming in. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll be with our resident political analyst, Jeannie Zaino, and Morgan Beckler. Stay with us. There are serious issues facing the next president who will take office in January: the economy, terrorism, trade, healthcare, immigration, to mention just a few. Now, they have been issues in the debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but their positions have often been overridden by the headline-making assertions of corruption and sexual misbehavior. It has been a contentious campaign from the outset. Now, in 9 days, the voters will get to choose between Trump or Clinton or the two third-party candidates. Joining me now to talk about where we are in the campaign and the issues facing voters is PIC's political contributor, Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College and senior advisor at Techonomics, and Morgan Beckler, executive director of the think tank Effective New York and co-host of Effective Radio on 970 AM. Thanks for coming in. What a bright class you've got over there in political science. You're doing a great job, Zini.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Marvin.
Okay, I never had professors like you. Okay. So here, with the polls showing Donald tanking by as much as 13 points, has the die been set? Is Hillary Clinton going to be our next president?
It certainly seems likely it would be a historic failure of the polls were Hillary Clinton to be defeated on Election Day. And I think the clearest indicator of at least where Donald Trump stands on this is the fact that he has stopped giving his own money to his campaign. Up until now, he was contributing about $2 million a month. And as of October, he's given nothing. So he certainly thinks that he's not a good investment anymore.
Now, no candidate in the past, this far behind, so close to the election, has ever turned it around, has it?
Not in modern polling. We haven't. It would be an unprecedented turnaround, and it would mean the polls are wildly wrong, which is possible but unlikely. But to your point, historically, we've never seen a turnaround like this. So you'd be hard pressed to imagine he comes back from this deficit at this late date.
Now, what about the undecideds? There's still a number of them. We had a 20% undecided out there, but I think that is narrowing now as we're getting just days before the election.
It's narrowing, and let's not forget that we've already had early voting going on all over the country, and so we already have a lot of people who have already voted. So there may still be some undecideds, and we see them turn out on November 8th, but don't forget the polls are also reflecting the undecideds as well. So I'm hard-pressed to imagine that they are going to turn this thing wildly.
Now, Florida is a must-win state for whoever is going to be our next president. Right now, it's a horse race there. It's so close between Trump and Clinton.
I mean, it certainly could go either way, but Donald Trump has so many must-win states. Hillary Clinton has a solid block of blue states that represent a significant part of the Electoral College. And so there are so many battleground states where Hillary Clinton is leading in right now that the math has to work out for him in a perfect storm, and that's why it seems almost a fait accompli that Hillary Clinton will be our next president.
Is this going to be a landslide? Is this election night going to be an early night or a late night?
I've learned not to prognosticate this election season. We've both sat in these chairs and been many wrong on many occasions throughout this year. But certainly the way that it's shaping up right now, it could be a much larger margin than we've seen in this closely divided country over the last couple cycles.
What do you think, Jeannie?
I'm predicting that she's going to do overwhelmingly well in the Electoral College. I'm not so sure the popular vote is going to be an overwhelming victory. I certainly, think she is going to win. I'm guessing we'll probably see, 4 or 5%, something along those lines. But a lot of this depends on something that's really hard to determine by polling, and that's turnout. If turnout is very depressed, if Democrats don't get out, Republicans, you could see some changes there. So I'm not sure the margin's going to be as big as some of the polls are predicting.
Well, and with Donald Trump's, financial deficit, Hillary Clinton has over $100 million more than he does right now and can spend $8 million a day between now and Election Day. It is unclear whether he's going to have the resources to have a significant get-out-the-vote operation. And there's still the nuts and bolts mechanics on Election Day that is so important.
Now, the other big question is, how is this going to impact the congressional and Senate races? Are the Republicans going to retain control of Congress?
I think it's looking like the Democrats may take the Senate. Republicans will certainly keep the House, although I think they're going to have a depressed margin there. But I think it's going to be a very, a big turnaround in the Senate. I think Democrats take it, and I think Chuck Schumer is likely to become the new majority leader.
It seems certain that, or it seems highly possible that that is going to be the case right now. I agree with Jeannie that I don't think that they're going to be able to pick up 30 seats to take over the House of Representatives. But this will be a very significant election for shifting the power into the hands of the Democrats in this country.
Very interesting. Morgan, I know you have to leave. Jeannie, you stick around. We're going to take a break. We come back. Thank you. We'll see you next week on our final analysis before the election. Stay with us as Pix 11 News Close-Up continues. Donald Trump has been making a lot of noise about the legitimacy of the polls that show him trailing Clinton. An Associated Press poll this week placed him 13 points behind the former Secretary of State, 54 to 41%. Now, this isn't the first time politicians and pundits have questioned the accuracy of polls. Tom Foreman takes a look at how these polls have been received in previous election cycles.
2012, Barack Obama is fighting for re-election and Republicans are furious, saying polls showing him with a significant lead over Mitt Romney are skewed in favor of Democrats and dead wrong.
Romney will win this election by 5 to 10 points in the popular vote and will carry more than 300 electoral votes.
By Election Day, the polls have tightened to a deadlock, but the final result is anything but. The president cruises to re-election, beating Romney 51 to 47%. 2 years later, the 2014 midterm elections. The numbers suggest the president's party may be in for a rough ride. So this time, some Democrats are saying, don't trust the polls. And it turns out the polls are wrong. The news is not bad for Democrats.
We have a major projection to announce right now.
It is catastrophic.
CNN projects the Republicans will take control of the United States Senate.
The GOP takes the Senate, tightens its grip on the House, and seizes more governorships, too.
It was not even close It wasn't even close.
It all encourages doubt and gives anyone losing in the polls an easy complaint.
Even the polls are crooked, I'm telling you. Look, we're in a rigged system, folks.
Pollsters are undeniably facing challenges. Fewer voters willing to participate, new technology like computerized calling, which makes some polls cheaper, faster, and at times less accurate.
Stand by, stand by.
And unbelievably close races with rapidly evolving news cycles can lead to occasional mistakes which have often haunted the polling business.
Our thanks to Tom Foreman for that report. Never forgot that Dewey and Truman race. It comes up every election. How reliable do you think the polls are?
Well, as Tom's piece just showed, they've been historically unreliable at key points, but usually that unreliability has been, we've been able to target as scholars where it came from, and we don't expect we're going to see that this time around. You know, you go back to Dewey defeats Truman, there were a lot fewer pollsters working at that time, and they weren't doing representative sampling, which is one of the ways we ensure that we are getting accurate polling. So there's, you know, there have been a lot of changes in polling since that time, and a lot more polling going on now. I'll tell you one thing that concerns me about this election is we've seen a lot more polling taking place online, which is terrific, except that it may not accurately reflect voters going to the polls because, as we know, fewer people are online. And they tend to skew younger and they tend to skew to different demographics. So I think that's a big question remaining out there.
Also, traditionally, the pollsters would receive people at home. Now they're getting them on cell phones, and sometimes there's great difficulty in how reliable you don't know who you're getting on a cell phone.
You don't know who you're getting, and it's very hard to reach people. I don't know if you're like I am, but a lot of times I don't want to answer my cell phone if I don't know who it is. And so a lot of people won't respond to pollsters. And non-response bias is a huge problem in polling today.
Okay, let's talk about, all right, Hillary Clinton seems to be heading towards 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. If that is, in fact, the outcome of this election, what kind of a president can we expect she'll make?
You know, if those of us, as you lived in New York and you saw her as senator, you saw a very dedicated public servant. She worked across the aisle. She pushed to get things done. So from that perspective, you think, okay, as she goes into the presidency, we can expect that kind of work ethic and that kind of ability to reach across the aisle. That said, it's far different to be president than it is to be senator, and she's going to face some really serious challenges. Even if the Democrats take the Senate, she's still facing a recalcitrant House controlled by the Republicans almost definitely, and she's got huge issues on her plate. Everything from immigration reform, which she promised to do in the first 100 days, to an appointment to the Supreme Court that's been now lingering longer than any other appointment in American history. So between those two things, you couple on top of that security issues, terrorism, what's going on abroad, issues like healthcare, education. She's got a lot on her plate, and I think she's going to face some real challenges in terms of trying to cobble together a majority in the House and the Senate that will work with her to pass some of these important policies.
Every new president has a honeymoon. Doesn't sound like she's going to have one.
You know, they used to, and you look back, and Barack Obama's was famously narrowed, and I think if she has one, it's going to be very, very short. I think the days of the 100-day honeymoon are behind us.
What about Congress, the Republican majority right now, and Paul Ryan, the Speaker? Does he retain the speakership?
He is under threat now from the right. He's being challenged on the right for his speakership. We know he was famously a reluctant speaker to begin with. He didn't want to be speaker from the beginning. And he's got huge challenges on his hands because it's a very tough caucus to run. And here's a guy who wants to get things done. He's a fairly moderate Republican, and he has some serious policy agendas that he wants to push forward. And yet he has a divided caucus, which make it very tough for him to move forward. And let's couple that with the idea he may lose some seats in the House and the Democrats may take the Senate. It's going to be an uphill battle for Paul Ryan. I think he has the toughest job in America.
9 days to go.
I can't believe it, Marvin.
How long ago did we start this, Jeannie?
Years.
It seems like that. Anyway, you'll be back next week. We'll have a final wrap and the analysis of what to expect on Election Day. And, of course, we'll have full coverage here on Pix 11 News. That'll do it for our program for this week. Thank you to Jeannie and to Morgan. If you have any comments or wish to see this broadcast again, log on to our website, pix11.com/News Closeup. I'm Marvin Scott. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and Halloween, everyone.